Wake up. Ebro in the morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
You shouldn't be saying that on the air.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, back on the program. Governor-elect Mikie Sherrill, welcome to the program and good morning.
Well, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Ebro, real quick, how nervous were you at the end, though? Like, did it actually feel tight? Because I was nervous about New Jersey, while a lot of focus here in New York was on Mamdani. In terms of people's lifestyles being really impacted, I was like, this Sherrill win might be the most important thing out there. Were you nervous in the final days?
You know, it's funny. I was never, the whole race was a complicated race. New Jersey politics are nothing if not complicated. And we had 6 people in the primary, really credible people. And then, you know, so that was a big part of it. And then we put that together and then we immediately had to turn to the general. And I never felt, you know, I always felt like I had a good path to winning. And so we had a great plan. We had a great team. We were just getting better and better each day. So I felt really good. The early vote by mail numbers and the early in-person numbers were fantastic. We were seeing the signs of a big win. Okay. But you never can count on that. So we went into Election Day with about a 300,000 person blue firewall. So we were looking at him having to get like 73% of the vote or something on Election Day. Yeah, so we felt good. But all that said, so I felt good. I slept great that night. I woke up on Election Day and suddenly I'm like, what if all my numbers are wrong? What if
That's right. It could happen.
What if there's something we're missing?
We've seen it before, Mikie.
Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden on Election Day, I got the feeling, but luckily as the day went on, the numbers kept looking good. I was thinking I'd win by about 10 points. That was my calculation. So the 13-point win felt great. That was really exciting.
So let's get into the priorities that you have. Because, you know, we are seeing, you know, people are calling what happened the other day a blue wave with Detroit and Virginia and New York City and Prop 50 in California. What is the first things first for Mikie Sherrill?
Well, on day one, I'm declaring a state of emergency on utility costs because really, as I ran, a lot of this was about cost of living. It was about how people are going to succeed. And so that is really key, I think, not just to helping drive down people's out-of-pocket costs, but also to show the sense of urgency I have for addressing those key needs. You know, the reason I think we had such a big win was because we rebuilt that traditional Democratic powerhouse of a vote of working people who were like, look, we need good schools. Yep. We need good jobs. We need opportunity. We need our kids to do better than we're doing. All the building blocks of that. And that is, you know, I come from the military. I grew up in the Cold War. I care deeply about rights and freedoms. That's central to who I am and what I fight for. But part of this is, you know, when I look at I was talking in my acceptance speech about our state motto, liberty and prosperity. Yeah. A lot of this that's going on right now, it's liberty. Yeah, that's at risk. But prosperity is too. Yeah. Like who has access to economic opportunity? And the president is trying to make this a country where, you know, wealthy people are wealthy and they stay wealthy and everybody works 3 jobs and tries to get crumbs at the table. And that is the opposite of what I want to do here in New Jersey.
Well, the utility costs are obviously becoming a big headline because as we get into AI and you get into more, you know, just people just using more energy, right, mm-hmm. and all of the things, it feels like the utility companies, which many are publicly traded, are anticipating some demand coming and they want to raise costs on the end user. But are we raising costs on the corporations that are creating these things? And are they going to have to pay their fair share to make sure that we mitigate costs rising for everyone in their homes? How is that part of policy making for you as you move down the path of managing energy costs?
So right now we have some ways of defraying it. So as I say, freezing rate hikes, we're going to work with utility companies because they've already put out an open letter, and we've met with several of the heads of them to say, look, we can't just keep dumping this on the ratepayer, and they That's get right. that. And they want to work with me on that, and they've said as much. We also have some money coming in through different programs through the Bureau of Public Utilities that we can use to defray some of this. But over the long term, we have to build out an energy arsenal. And you're right, that's going to take resources. And so we're going to have to look across the state at how we are going to fund that. We had a plan to do that through the federal government. That was what you saw when we were having all of the tax credits for building.
But the bill is so big and so beautiful.
Right.
Yeah. So that has, really taken away a lot of our ability to build out this energy infrastructure that our country needs and certainly our state needs. So you're exactly right. We're going to have to look to other opportunities. I will use our federal delegation to fight for those federal dollars. We will have to look at who's using the power and where, and how we're going to push the resources in to build out this energy infrastructure, because we have a plan for driving that in right now, but we're going to, I'm going to be looking at the budget coming up, the state budget coming up, to what it's going to take to build out our solar on capped landfills, put it on all of the rooftops. We got to cut through some permitting and regulatory things too, which are making it more expensive to do that. We've already invested a lot in upgrading our transmission and upgrading our power grid, which is really important because now if we're going to onboard a lot of this opportunity, and we got to come up with nuclear in the long term, and that's expensive. So, we'll be looking at how we are going to fund this now that the federal government seems to be backing away from, doing what we need to do to modernize here in this country.
Do you have a direct plan yet for January in terms of how you are going to try to protect New Jersey residents, immigrants who are scared of the ICE raids? What's sort of your plan of attack in how we deal with this ICE situation?
So I am going to both ensure that people are safe going to schools, churches, reporting crimes. And then I'm going to sit down in the next couple weeks and even this week to discuss exactly what the rules of the road are right now when it comes to how our law enforcement officers are engaging with ICE, what they're seeing on the ground. I've already had some of these conversations. So one police officer saying that he came upon a guy who was dressed like he was going to Afghanistan. Imagine you're walking down the street with your kids and there's some guy in camis with his face covered, carrying, weapons, and you're walking down to get ice cream or something. So he goes up to him, he says, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I don't have to tell you who I am." He goes, "Yeah, you do. I'm going to take you to jail." The ICE agent goes, "Well, I'll take you to jail." And the cop goes, "Well, I guess we'll figure it out in jail, but you're going to show me some identification." Finally did. He was an ICE agent. So that's unacceptable.
Right.
So I want to understand right now what the current rules of the road are with law enforcement, and then chart forward how we're engaging, because ICE is getting more and more dangerous right now. They are picking people up who are here legally. They are detaining U.S. citizens. They are not waiting for paperwork. They are entering buildings. I want to make sure that everybody understands what documentation, warrants, and that everyone's asking for a warrant before agents come into their places of business, so we can push back in every way possible so people can continue to feel safe and live their lives. And right now, we certainly don't want to see anything like what was happening in Chicago happening here in New Jersey. So all I can do to protect people and citizens here, I will be doing.
The rhetoric during the election had a lot to do with taxes, right? The GOP always talks about no new taxes. We're freezing taxes. We're cutting the fat. We're doing this. But it's always like we're going to cut all of these things that pay for the things. But no one ever explains, well, how are we then going to pay for the things that we need to pay for if you stop collecting on money that we need to collect to pay for the things? So I saw one of your ads, which was about trying to figure out how to get into the bureaucracy of it all and trimming fat in places where there's just overspending and mismanagement. One of the biggest critiques of government, whether it be local, state, or federal, is the mismanagement of money. One of the critiques in New Jersey with New Jersey Transit has always been the mismanagement of money. Can you articulate today, I don't know what you know and if you've had a chance to really get into the details, how you're going to, A, get this done, and B, communicate it to us so that we can have faith in state government that these things are being managed correctly?
So the sort of contract, if you will, for the people here in New Jersey with the state has been, okay, if we are going to pay these taxes, then you, government, are going to deliver really good schools, really good services, great opportunity, right? Really good jobs. That's why we live here. We're, having a good job. Our kids have a good education. So this contract.
That's the deal. That's the deal.
Right? The deal feels like it's fraying because now we're seeing our schools kind of slipping. Yep. I have grave concerns about third grade reading, for example, as my running mate, Dr. Dale Caldwell, would say, you learn to read until the third grade and then you read to learn. So if you're not reading at grade level by third grade, you're going to start to find yourself impaired as you go to the higher level. So that's just a key inflection point. The mental health in our schools, the social media, all this stuff's kind of going on that isn't being addressed very well. So people are starting to feel like, hey, the contract's not being fulfilled. And then what's more, sure, you might have some really great schools here, but I can't afford a house. I can't afford my healthcare. I can't afford my utility costs, right? So all of these costs seem to be exploding. And it seems to be services are good, but costs have become so explosive for people that they can't even afford to live here. So with that in mind, we do have some areas where I wouldn't say it's fat or corruption necessarily in some of these areas. The money's not being managed very well.
It's not efficient. You want to go with efficient?
It's not efficient. So when we have more municipalities than California, and we have more school districts than municipalities, you can see that, the way we're running our state becomes very, 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 very expensive. And so there are areas where I think as we come into a government where the federal government is now, just really imploding the economy, taking healthcare away from millions of people, driving up healthcare costs so people can't afford it, running a tariff regime where Trump's pocketing billions and we're all paying more for groceries. I mean, all of this stuff is a huge hit. So New Jersey suddenly doesn't have the luxury, if you will, of all of these layers. So that's why I've said we've really got to immediately start to address school administrations, for example. We have a really bloated school administration system, and yet we're not putting as much money as we wanted to, just education, teachers, and then we have some of the oldest school buildings in the nation. So putting it all into this bloated administration is just not sustainable anymore. So we've really got to address that.
Do you have support from the traditional, because as you articulated, politics in New Jersey is complicated. You have all of these small towns and townships and villages and boroughs and this thing and that thing and this county. I mean, even here by the city where you go, okay, West New York, Gutenberg, Edgewater, Union, Northburg, like what's what? Like, I don't know what's what. Do you have support from this kind of traditional establishment New Jersey to make these changes, or are you going to have to ruffle some feathers and people are going to shape some bad narratives against you and attack you because they feel like you're taking money out of their coffers?
Well, it might be a little bit of both, but here's the thing. I think what I do is usually build up really broad support for items that I want to get done. And I do that by listening to people and understanding what their key issues are, and then building with them a plan of attack for those issues. And the things that people want in all of our towns is they don't want their town to change. People love their towns here in New Jersey. I love my town here in New Jersey. So the idea of, if you don't express it well, any idea of change makes them feel like
that's right.
You're taking something away. So sitting and having town hall meetings and having, people coming to the table and making sure people understand what we're doing, and that their town, they're still going to have their elementary school in their town. And yet they're going to have great services there, and they're going to have a great elementary school, but the administration of all of it might, we might consolidate that,
reconfigure that a little bit,
the town next door or something, so we might, and I will tell you that many mayors want to see some of this, because mayors will complain to me all the time. Everybody's complaining to me about property taxes. It's all going to the schools. I don't, People don't understand 70% of their property taxes are going to schools here, and I don't control that. And we also have some, towns are run differently. Some towns have a lot of expertise, some don't. So I think what I'll start with, I know what I'm going to start with doing is offering this expertise at the state level. Look, because you see these towns making contracts with each other, and they always then get hit in the press because the contracts sometimes aren't very good. So one town's offering services to another town, shared services, and yet the other town's not really paying enough. And so then that comes out in the press. And so the town that made the contracts, the mayor's getting hit, the council's getting hit, but they didn't necessarily have all of the key components. Everyone wants them to share services. Well, they need a little administrative support in doing that. And the state can provide that. The county can provide that.
Last thing from me, Mikie, have you spoken to Mayor-elect Mamdani yet? And curious about your guys' relationship, because obviously there'll be some certain things that you need to come together to work on.
Right. So the mayor called me. So New Jersey polls close at 8. New York polls close at 9. So the mayor called me after my race was called to congratulate me, which was very thoughtful. And I told him I thought we'd be hearing some good news from him. So he has a very different, I'm not a democratic socialist. And so he has a very different view. But there are obviously key things. I keep getting asked, are you going to work with the mayor of New York City? I'm like, I'm going to be the governor of New Jersey. We have the 250th anniversary coming up. We have FIFA. We have shared services with NYPD. I mean, we have transit systems that go back and forth, that we have tons of people, 200,000 people a day go into the city for jobs just in the underground rail. I mean,
there's no world where you don't work together.
Right. Has to be.
Right. So I'll be working with Mayor-elect Mamdani. I'll be working with Governor Hochul because I will be working for the people of New Jersey, and I'm looking forward to it.
The establishment Democrat tag that obviously flies your way, right? When you even articulate something like, I'm not a democratic socialist. The world that we see Democrats in today, right, with understanding the future versus what was, where we're going. You articulated a priority of working families, right, which is something that I think whether you're a democratic socialist or an establishment Democrat moderate, everyone agrees working families is something we all need to figure out how to support. It's the how, right? Like it's the way we go about doing it. For the audience, can you tell us how you're going to manage things for people who are the most disenfranchised in the state of New Jersey, as far as, people impoverished folks, Black and brown people? You spoke about education. What is your priority there to bring more people into the economic prosperity conversation who may not be?
So I think there's a real trust deficit right now between people and elected officials because, so much of the social media and attacks online and some of the right-wing attacks and stuff are constantly, putting out various narratives. So I think a lot of the ways in which I talk to people is by showing them my record and what I've done. So to just give people a sense of how I'll govern, I think it's instructive to look at the campaign I just ran. We turned out voters from across the state. We swung every single county to the left. We swung some areas of the state. I think Hudson County swung 22 points. Passaic County swung 18 points. I mean, those are, if anybody in elected politics, those are huge, huge numbers, huge swings. And we also turned out Newark in a way that they haven't turned out for a governor's race since at least 2005. So really putting an effort into it. And the way I did that was listening. I run these campaigns. I've spoken to and listened to thousands and thousands of New Jerseyans. So that's Black maternal health roundtables with Black women who'd had personal experience with midwives and doulas. It's going to various forums that we did, I felt like hundreds, but forums throughout the state. With the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, for example, or the NAACP, going to speak to pastors and churches and faith leaders, and as well as community leaders, elected officials. So in that way, I had heard and started to build out, okay, what is it going to take? Because I have always felt like the most instructive way to govern is to hear from people who are going to be affected by any policies you put in place. I've not been a real fan of go to a think tank and enact something and, tell people they're welcome,
Right.
but actually sitting on the ground and hearing, okay, exactly how is this operating? Why isn't this working? Or why is this working so well? Can we do this better? How can we do more of this? And so I built that out. And then on the campaign also hired people from the various communities. Like we didn't hire somebody from, Indiana to come here and tell people in New Jersey that I was a good person. We hired people from Newark and Willingboro and areas across the state so that people knew that they had inroads into my campaign and that the people that they were talking to on my campaign understood them because they had lived in their communities and they understood what was going on very well. And then as we built out the agenda, the people that I'd sat with in grassroots groups or the pastors I had sat with in churches then were verifiers and saying, okay, I've sat with her and yeah, her agenda is exactly what we wanted. She's charted this out. We didn't like this. We talked about it. We figured it out. Now she's doing X. And so it's been that kind of campaign, and that's how I'll govern, by actually ensuring that my administration looks like New Jersey and that people have access to my administration. And once we start to get to work on these programs, if the programs, whatever's working, we are going to continue. And what's not working, we're going to be pretty nimble in redoing it. And I think that's where government sometimes really falls short.
I love that. Being accountable to things that aren't working. We tried a thing, it sucked. We got to pivot. Here's the pivot.
It happens.
Yeah. And I don't think there's another campaign that has had as its central operating principle ruthless competence.
Right.
I mean, it may not be like the sexiest slogan, but that's what people want to see, right? Is look, I'm hiring you to be governor, not to be, something fun. I'm hiring you to be
listen, we're going to have a lot of conversations, hopefully, over the next several years. Governor Murphy was a regular on our program just so we could get the word out about what he was trying to communicate. That's how we like to keep our political relationships, especially with people who are trying to be productive and not just, negative and create chaos. Hopefully we can have a conversation soon, too, about some of the more difficult decisions you're going to have to make, right? Because I feel like if we can be transparent with the audience where you can say, hey, guys, we got to make some tough decisions and it's going to ruffle some feathers, heads up. I think that's also a great way to govern, right? Because then, because you're going to have to make some decisions and work with people that maybe your constituency won't be happy with, or you're going to have to make some cuts and changes and divert funds in directions that might, make, this person over here upset. So I just want to make sure you know that we're going to be texting you and calling you to try to get clarity on some things.
And that is great. And as I have said during my campaign, and will repeat now, hold me accountable. We have a lot to do, and I need to make sure what we're doing and what we're working on is working for people. So I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for giving me all this time.
Of course, Mikie. Congrats again.
Yeah, and can we just call you Mikie, like you're the homie around the way, like, yo, Mikie, what's good? Or do we have to go with Governor?
Call me Mikie, so please do. And looking forward to. In fact, I think Trump said that was my only campaign asset.
What, the name?
Yes. I'll have to thank my dad.
Listen. If he wasn't such a dangerous person and in a powerful position, he'd be a great comedian.
No, he has great lines.
He'd be a great comedian.
That gets you, right?
Thank you so much, Governor-elect. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.